Bullet heaven, reverse bullet hell, roguelike, shoot 'em up, whatever genre you decide to put these games into, one thing is certain. They are some of the most addicting games that are currently on the market. But what makes them so addicting? Why have millions of people locked themselves to their chairs for hours on end playing these games? And how has such a simple concept been able to take the gaming landscape by storm? To me, the formula is simple, and today I want to talk about that formula with you all. Before I jump into the reasoning behind Bullet Heaven's explosion into the gaming scene, I want to go over one of the most important reasons as to why these games, I think, are so popular, and that is their price. You can get these games for under $5. Hell, right now you can get Vampire Survivors, all the DLC, and even the original soundtrack for $7. And for the amount of fun you can have in these games for what little you pay for them, that really sells itself. Especially in today's day of age, where games are being sold for $150. If content for money spent is one of the ways that you judge games, this selling point is a no-brainer. Now that that's out of the way, in December of 2021, Vampire Survivors kicked off what would become this new genre of gaming. It absolutely exploded into the mainstream and sold millions of copies worldwide for PC, later being put onto mobile for free and garnering millions of downloads there as well. And ever since that release, games have been taking the original Vampire Survivors formula and tweaking it in their own image. But for Vampire Survivors, and the genre in general, the formula is extremely simple. You pick a character, run around on a map, let everything be auto-attacked while dodging enemies, upgrade abilities mid-run, die, make upgrades to your character, sometimes, and repeat. This was something similar to many other roguelites that people had played in the past, but it stripped it to an even more simplistic version of itself, and added enemies. Like a shitload of enemies. And this simplicity isn't a detriment to the games at all. It is a strength, and one of the main reasons why I think this genre has become as popular as it has. Anyone can play this game. The only controls that are really needed are just moving around. This ability for anyone to be able to play, with hardly any barrier of entry, instantly opens up a large core audience to attract to the genre. Side note, it also helps that these games don't really strive for graphical fidelity either, as that will help them stand the test of time better. But making a game's controls easy to understand isn't what's going to keep a core audience engaged. There are a ton of games with simplistic controls that don't get played at all. The simplicity might attract a wide range of gamers, but the gameplay needs to keep people playing. Which brings us to the next reason why I think this genre is as big as it is, and that is the gameplay loop. In a past video of mine, I go over how Halls of Torment has the ultimate just one more run factor behind it. This concept, though, isn't just tied to Halls of Torment. It is spread along all Bullet Heaven games. In a traditional roguelite, some runs can last a fair amount of time, as you are traveling a world that has been generated for you to explore. In Bullet Heaven games, you are constricted by a set time limit. When first starting to play any of these games in the genre, this limit is something to strive for. Each minute you live, the enemies get harder and spawn with more frequency, with new mini-bosses spawning throughout at set time intervals. Early on in gameplay, these enemies will eventually overwhelm the player quite quickly, and they will die. And it is with this quick death that the loop is locked for most people who play. You want to get to the end of the timer to see what happens. These bite-sized loops of gameplay in Bullet Heaven games provide a quick shot of achievement or failure. Since the time is constricted to such a short amount, me, as a player, feels that I can hop in for just one more to see if I can make it further than I did in the last run. If I die in the first 15 minutes, another 15 minutes to try again doesn't feel as big of a commitment to the gameplay loop that I am partaking in. This early level of failure is what drives the just one more mindset to keep people engaged with trying to beat the level. I made it this far this time, but I know I can make it further next time. just one more run to see how I do. Which brings us to another point of why these games are so popular, in my opinion: the progression systems. Now, I may have separated them, but the gameplay loop and the progression systems do work hand in hand. As you progress through gameplay, new loops of failures and achievements open up. Learning a new character, trying a new ability, going to a new map creates that same loop that you had in the beginning. But the progression works separate from all of that as well. With most bullet heaven games, there is a ton of progression content built in. For most of these titles, you will be unlocking new things to try with almost every run you go into. That sense of achievement that the game is drip feeding you puts you into a space of feeling as if your time isn't being wasted. One of the main things that I hate in video games is if the game locks me into something where I feel like my time is being wasted. Fetch and follow quests are a big example of this. Go out, get these 3 things, bring them back. There's this person, go and follow them. These things aren't really engaging, and plainly, overall, for the most part, are extremely boring. In games like Halls of Torment or Vampire Survivors, all the fat is cut from the bone, leaving only the juiciest of meat. You are always striving towards a goal and unlocking new things to try. And when you weave in achievements to strive for to unlock those things, it adds a completely different layer of enjoyment. The game starts as just one more run. I know that I can get past this boss and beat the level. And then it morphs into just one more run. I need to kill this boss one more time to unlock this new thing that I can use. And when those new things unlock, it turns back to just one more run with this new thing because I know I can beat the same level with this new shiny thing. These games constantly lock you into a dopamine hit of unlocking something and achieving success with those unlocks, which makes them highly addictive to play. Now, do you remember at the beginning, like 10 minutes ago, when I said that bullet heaven games are some of the most simplistic games that there are in the market? Well, that might be starting out or just to get into the game, but these games can get very complex once you start to unlock a bunch of new abilities and characters. This is what brings us to what I think is the most fun part of every single one of these games, and that is the how can I break the game in half loop. After you beat some of the maps, open up some characters and skills, you start to realize something. These games are completely meant to be broken into pieces. I get to a point in these games where I ask myself, how low can I get my FPS down to, and how fast can I delete everything on the screen? How fast can I beat this boss? Can I just stand here and beat the game without ever moving? I want to fill the entire screen with explosions, so much so that I can't see anything that is happening. The great thing as well is there isn't just one way to break the game. There are usually several ways to break the game, and finding them all gives you a little extra chase while you are playing. And since the game has roguelite elements to it, each run that you do can be just a little different in the abilities and upgrades that you get. You may be wanting to test something, but you just don't get it due to RNG. But in return, you find something else that is completely broken, and you go down a rabbit hole of trying to get that thing to work. And when you take all of these baseline mechanics and loops, and you pair them with games within the genre that bring something different to the table, the genre as a whole keeps you engaged. For example, like Vampire Survivors is the grandfather of the bunch, but that doesn't mean it's not a great game that is continuously getting better as time marches on. A ton of characters, a ton of different upgrades, a ton of different locations and DLCs, and can be used as, I think, a great starting point when it comes to the bullet heaven genre. A game like Brotato provides a litany of different characters with a ton of different unlocks that provide a completely different experience each time you go into a run. It's a game that gives you a little more of a challenge throughout as well. When compared to other bullet heaven games, even on lower difficulties. It takes away the sprawling zones of most other bullet heaven games and replaces it with a very tight arena that you must navigate. A lot of the upgrades also come with negative effects, which make you plan out runs a little more targeted than others in the genre. You pair this with a leveling system, an afterwave shop where you buy upgrades, and a difficulty curve that goes all the way from 1 to 5, and you have a game that you can sink hours into. And I just want to say, this game is on Game Pass, and I just recently started playing it. And this might be one of my favorite bullet heaven games on the market. I haven't even beat level 5 difficulty yet, and struggle with most characters just to beat level 3. If you have Game Pass, give this thing a try. If you don't have Game Pass, buy the game, because it's a lot of fun. Death Must Die takes some RPG elements and introduce them into the game to provide some differing gameplay within it. While each character in DMD does bring its own differing game style, adding armor and armor sets that have different effects to them is what really separates this game apart from the others in the genre. It uses a god system, with each god changing your attacks in differing ways. They give different skills, augment actions a little different depending on who you choose to pair together. They also just released a new update with a new character, a new god, customizable skill trees for each character, new enemies, a new zone, and all of this is for free. I haven't had a chance to really dive in too deep yet, but it'll be something that I'll be doing here in the coming weeks. Deep Rock Galactic Survivor brings Deep Rock gameplay to the genre, which is quite different from anything else I've played for a bullet heaven game. Do you have to kill things to progress? Of course, but there's also an aspect of mining minerals as well, so that you can upgrade your characters outside of the game. The same side missions you might get in Deep Rock Galactic also come into Survivor as a way to earn gold to upgrade your character mid-run. The way the characters play also play quite similarly to how they do in the main Deep Rock game, which makes the transition into playing the Survivor game pretty seamless. If you're a fan of Deep Rock Galactic and other bullet heaven games, definitely give this one a shot. Halls of Torment added a couple of different mechanics that were overall fun to explore. Instead of getting gear instantly, what would it feel like to make it a battle against the environment? Get a piece of gear you want? Well, better get it to the well to extract it. But don't worry, here in Halls of Torment, we live in a capitalistic society, so the well keeper is here to charge you for pulling the item up from the depths. And these are just some of the few bullet heaven games that are currently out. There are a ton of others that I just haven't got around to playing yet. Each one of these games within this genre is taking the original Vampire Survivors formula and adding their own spin on it to keep you engaged with their game over others while staying true to what makes bullet heaven games great, which in the end, for us the consumer, is a win. But each one of these games gives the constant dopamine hit, unlike any other genre I have played, which makes them some of the most addicting on the market. And once you, quote-unquote, beat them, you feel a level of satisfaction that not many games provide nowadays. Collectively having over 150 hours of game time, I know rookie numbers, for a group of games that I have paid less than $40 for is just a spectacular feat. All of these games are cheap, easy to get into, easy to play, fun to master, and overall some of the best gaming you will get in today's age of gaming. If you're a fan of the genre, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't given any bullet heaven games a try yet, maybe this video will get you into it. But the bullet heaven genre is here to stay and growing every day. And boy, I'm sure glad that's the case, because I have $5 burning a hole in my pocket, and I'm ready for just one more run.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through